Imagine a man so consumed by pride, he invited his ex-wife to his lavish wedding just to humiliate her. But what happens when she shows up in a Rolls-Royce, with triplets by her side, turning his plan upside down? This is a story of betrayal, redemption, and a truth that shocked an entire city. Once upon a time in the bustling city of Enugu, there lived a man named Chick. He was a wealthy businessman in his early 30s. Everyone knew him as a man who loved money, cars, and power. Chick wore expensive suits, drove the newest cars, and walked with his head high, as if the ground wasn't good enough for his shoes. He was proud, loud, and always demanded respect. But behind the big house, behind the gold watch on his wrist, there was a part of his life that made him angry every single day. His wife, Nosi, had no children. Can you believe 7 years of marriage ended in a single night of heartbreak? Nosi was a quiet, gentle woman, beautiful with smooth brown skin and soft eyes that carried sadness. She married Chick out of love, not for his money. For 7 years, she stood by his side, but those years became years of pain because every month she waited, and every month the news was the same. No child. One evening, the storm that had been building in their marriage finally broke. The house was quiet, the air thick with tension. Nosi sat at the edge of the bed, her hands clasped tightly together. Chick entered the bedroom with a frown, his tie pulled loose, his voice heavy with irritation. 7 years, Nosi, Chick shouted, slamming his car keys on the dresser. 7 years of waiting and still no child. Do you want me to die without an heir? Nosi lifted her eyes slowly, her voice trembling. Chick, I've tried. We've tried. It's not in my hands. Maybe we should see another doctor. Maybe there's still hope. Hope? Chick laughed bitterly. Is that what you've been telling yourself? I'm tired of hope. My mother calls me every day to ask why you haven't given me a son. My friends laugh behind my back. Do you know how it feels to be mocked as a man with no child? You've turned me into a fool. Nosi's eyes filled with tears. Please don't speak like that. I'm your wife. We made a vow before God. We said for better, for worse. Why do you throw it at me like I'm nothing? Chick's voice grew louder. Because you are nothing to me now. What is a woman who cannot bear children? You eat my food, wear my clothes, ride in my car, yet you cannot give me one son to carry my name. Nosi, you're a curse in my life. Nosi's lips shook as she tried to speak. Do not call me a curse. I've prayed. I've cried. I go to bed every night begging God to give us a child. I'm not happy, Chick. Do you think it gives me joy to be like this? I'm in pain, too. Chick turned his back, pacing the room like a lion in a cage. His anger burned hotter with every word. Enough of your tears. I'm done waiting. I won't allow you to waste my life. Tomorrow, I'll speak to my lawyer. This marriage is finished. Nosi gasped, as if her chest had been struck. Divorce? You'll divorce me after everything? After I stood by you when you had nothing? After I left my family for you? Chick, have you forgotten the love we once had? Chick swung back to face her, his eyes cold and hard. Love cannot produce children. My mother was right. I should have left you long ago. I need a wife who can give me sons, not a woman who fills my house with silence. By tomorrow, Nosi, I want you out of my house. Nosi broke down, falling to her knees, clutching the edge of his trousers. Please, Chick, don't do this. Give me more time. Give us more time. God can still answer us. Chick pulled his leg away, as if her touch disgusted him. God has nothing to do with this. You're the problem and I'm tired. You'll leave. That's final. The argument echoed through the walls. The maids in the house whispered among themselves, but none dared to enter the room. Nosi's sobs filled the air as she tried one last time. Chick, look into my eyes. Look at the woman who cooked for you, who washed your clothes, who prayed for you when you were sick. I've given you everything I could. Don't throw me away like trash. But Chick's heart was hardened. He picked up his phone and made a call in front of her. Yes, Barrister Okeke, prepare the papers. I want a divorce immediately. Yes, she'll leave tomorrow. Nosi froze, staring at him in disbelief. You called your lawyer already? You planned this? Chick, how could you? Chick looked down at her, his tone sharp. Nosi, you're a burden. I'm freeing myself. If you love yourself, pack your things tonight. By morning, I don't want to see you here. Nosi stood slowly, her body weak, her heart breaking into pieces. She walked to the wardrobe and began to fold her clothes into a small bag. Her hands shook so much she could barely zip it. Every dress she folded carried memories, birthdays, church services, quiet dinners. But now, those memories felt like lies. As she packed, Chick stood watching, his arms crossed, his face stone cold. Not once did he move to stop her. Not once did his heart soften. Nosi finally lifted her small bag, her tears falling freely. She turned to him one last time, her voice breaking. Chick, you'll regret this. One day, you'll see the truth. One day, you'll understand what you've done. But Chick didn't answer. He looked away, as if she were already gone. With slow steps, Nosi walked out of the bedroom, her slippers dragging on the marble floor. The house that once felt like a home now felt like a prison. She passed the maids, who bowed their heads, afraid to meet her eyes. She pushed open the big front door, and the night air hit her face. She paused, looking back at the mansion she'd called home for 7 years. Then she whispered to herself, I may be leaving with nothing, but I won't remain broken. My God will fight for me. And with that, Nosi stepped into the darkness, her bag in her hand, her tears falling, but her spirit quietly vowing that this wasn't the end of her story. What if the woman you called worthless was destined to rise again, stronger than ever? Nosi didn't know where she was walking that night. She just kept moving, holding her bag close to her chest. The street lights were on, but the road felt dark. Her legs were shaking, her eyes wet. She could still hear Chick's voice in her ears. You're a burden. I'm freeing myself. She walked past shops, past sleeping dogs, past women closing their stalls. No one looked at her twice. No one knew the woman passing them had just lost her home, her husband, her peace. Her friend, Amaka, lived a few streets away. She was the only person Nosi could think of. They'd known each other since university, and even though life had taken them in different directions, Amaka's door was always open. Nosi knocked gently. It was almost 10 p.m. Amaka opened the door in her wrapper, shocked. Nosi, what happened to you? Why are you crying? Did someone die? Nosi couldn't speak. She burst into tears again and fell into her friend's arms. Come inside, Amaka said, pulling her into the small flat. She led her to a chair and closed the door. Talk to me, please. What happened? He threw me out, Nosi whispered. Chick. Amaka hissed and sat beside her. That man has no fear of God. After all these years, he didn't even check himself. Nosi, you've suffered. Nosi rested her head on Amaka's shoulder. I don't even know where to start. I left with just this bag. All my things are still in that house. Amaka touched her arm gently. Don't worry. You'll sleep here tonight. You can stay as long as you need. I don't have much, but this house is your house now. Nosi closed her eyes and let out a long sigh. Thank you, Amaka. The room was silent for a few seconds. Then Amaka stood up. Come, let me boil water. You'll take a hot bath and eat something. Tomorrow, we'll talk about what's next. Nosi sat there as Amaka walked away, her eyes staring at the floor. Her heart felt like it had cracked into many pieces. That night, she couldn't sleep. Even though the bed was soft and the room quiet, her mind kept going back to the moment Chick told her to leave. She remembered how he turned his face away, how he looked at her like a stranger. By morning, her pillow was soaked with tears. Days passed. Nosi stayed in Amaka's house, trying to hide her sadness, but she couldn't eat much. She barely spoke. She'd sit near the window, staring outside as if waiting for something to change. Amaka tried everything to cheer her up. One morning, she said, "Nosi, come with me to the market. Let's walk around, breathe some fresh air." But Nosi shook her head. "I don't want people to see me. What if someone asks about Chick? What will I say?" "You'll say the truth," Amaka replied. "That he's a fool who threw away a diamond because he wanted a stone." Nosi gave a small smile, but it didn't last. Later that week, Amaka brought up something important. "Nosi, have you ever gone for a proper medical checkup?" Nosi looked at her, confused. "What kind of checkup?" "A fertility test. Have you ever tested yourself to be sure the problem wasn't from you?" Nosi shook her head slowly. "Chick said it was me. He never agreed to go for tests himself. He said he was fine." Amaka frowned. "So you just believed him?" "I didn't have a choice," Nosi said, her voice weak. "He wouldn't listen. And his mother called me names. They all blamed me." Amaka stood up. "No, this has to stop. We're going to the hospital tomorrow. Let them run all the tests. I need you to hear the truth from a doctor, not from that proud husband of yours." Nosi didn't argue. She was tired of guessing. Maybe, just maybe, she needed answers. The next day, they went to Life Hope Medical Center, a quiet private hospital where Amaka knew one of the doctors. Dr. Uche, a soft-spoken man in his 40s, welcomed them into his office. "How can I help you, Madam Nosi?" he asked gently. Amaka answered for her. She was married for 7 years. No child. Her husband divorced her because he said she was barren, but she's never done any test. "We want a full checkup." Dr. Uche nodded slowly. "You did the right thing by coming here. We'll run some tests, then we'll talk." They spent the next few hours doing blood work, scans, hormone tests. Nosi felt nervous the whole time. What if Chick had been right? What if she really was the problem? 2 days later, the results were ready. Nosi sat in front of the doctor, her hands sweating. Dr. Uche adjusted his glasses and smiled. "Madam, everything looks good. Your reproductive system is healthy. You're ovulating well. Your hormone levels are normal. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you." Nosi blinked. "Nothing?" "Nothing," the doctor repeated. "If there was no pregnancy for 7 years, I advise you ask your ex-husband to check himself. From what I see, you are completely fine." Nosi covered her mouth as tears filled her eyes. I don't know what to say." Amaka jumped from her seat. "I knew it. I knew it. That man lied to you, Nosi. He blamed you just to cover his own shame." Nosi felt her whole world spin. "So all this time, I wasn't the problem." Dr. Uche smiled kindly. "You were never the problem. And when you find the right man, I believe you'll have your own children. Don't let what happened steal your peace." They thanked the doctor and left. Outside the hospital, Nosi sat on a bench, her body shaking from the truth she'd just heard. "All these years," she whispered, "I begged God. I cried every night. I hated myself. And I wasn't the one." Amaka sat beside her and held her hand. "Chick will pay for what he did to you. I swear, Nosi, one day he'll look at you and wish he never let you go." Nosi looked up at the sky. "Maybe this is the beginning of my healing." The next few weeks were different. Nosi started helping Amaka with her tailoring business. She wasn't smiling fully yet, but she was no longer lost. She began waking up early again, eating small meals, even laughing sometimes. One evening, she told Amaka, "I want to start something. Maybe a small food business. I've always loved cooking." Amaka smiled wide. "Yes, that's the spirit. I'll help you. Let's make it happen. They used Amaka's small veranda to start a food stand. Every morning, Nosi would cook rice, beans, moi, and soup. By 7 a.m., workers from nearby offices were lining up to buy. People began to know her again, not as the woman chick divorced, but as the woman who made the best jollof in the area. One afternoon, a customer smiled at her and said, "Madam, you look different. There's a glow on your face." Nosi smiled softly. Maybe I'm finally free. But even with the small happiness, there were nights when the pain returned. One night, as she was folding aprons, she turned to Amaka. "Do you think he ever loved me?" Amaka looked at her and said slowly, "I think he loved himself more. That's the only thing I'm sure of." Nosi nodded. "I just wish I didn't waste so many years." "You didn't waste them," Amaka said. "You grew. You became stronger. And one day, God will give you more than you lost." Nosi didn't reply, but deep inside, something was changing. A small fire had started. A quiet strength. One Sunday afternoon, Amaka came home from church with news. "Nosi, guess what?" Nosi looked up from her pot of soup. "What happened?" "I saw Chick's cousin today. He told me Chick is preparing to marry someone new. A flashy girl from Lagos." Nosi's heart paused for a moment. "Oh," she said quietly. "He's even inviting some of your old friends to the wedding," Amaka added. "He wants people to come and see what a real wife looks like." Nosi looked away. "He hasn't changed at all." Amaka came closer. "You know, he might even send you an invite just to mock you." Nosi didn't say anything. She stirred her soup slowly. Then she whispered, "Let him do whatever he wants. I know who I am now." But that night, as she lay on her bed, her hand rested on her belly. She stared at the ceiling for a long time, remembering what the doctor said. "You're healthy." She placed her other hand over her chest. "God, if you ever saw my tears, please show the world that I was never the problem." And she closed her eyes, not with pain, but with a small smile of peace. Nosi stood in front of her food stand one morning, wiping the edge of a table with a cloth. The street was already buzzing with life. Children were rushing to school, kiki drivers were honking, and women were calling out prices from their stalls. She was wearing a simple gown with a scarf tied around her head. The smell of her jollof rice filled the air, and a small line was already forming. She smiled weakly at each customer, dishing rice and stew into takeaway plates. But inside her heart, there was a quiet war. One part of her was moving on, but another part still remembered the pain, still remembered Chick's voice, how she was called barren, useless, and thrown out like trash. "Madam, 2 plates, please." A man's voice broke her thoughts. She turned. The man standing there was tall, with kind eyes and a calm face. He wore a white shirt tucked into neat brown trousers and carried a small black laptop bag. He smiled gently, pointing to the rice pot. "Your jollof smells too good to pass," he said. Nosi forced a small smile. "Thank you." "Spicy or normal?" "Spicy," the man replied. "Very spicy. I like my food to fight back." That made Nosi chuckle a little. She packed the 2 plates and handed them over. "How much?" he asked. 2,000, she replied. He handed her a clean note, took the food, and looked at her for a second. "You don't talk much," he said. Nosi shrugged. "I just like to focus on the food." "That's fair," he smiled. "My name's Emma, by the way. I work at the firm down the road. I'll be coming back often. Your rice has already won my heart." Nosi gave a polite nod. "Thank you, sir." As he walked away, she didn't think much of it. Just another customer. But Emma came back the next day, and the day after that, and the next. Sometimes he ordered 2 plates, sometimes just 1. But each time he came, he made a small joke or shared a short story. He never stayed too long, never forced a long conversation. But Nosy noticed he always made her smile. One afternoon, he stayed a little longer. The street was quieter, and no one else was waiting in line. "Madam Nosy," he said, reading her name from the small sign on the stand. "Do you rest at all? You've been here since morning." Nosy wiped her hands on her apron. "I rest when I get home." Emma frowned. "You shouldn't work this hard alone. Do you have any help?" "No," she replied, "but I'm used to it." There was silence for a moment. Then he spoke again. "If I'm being too forward, forgive me. But are you married?" Nosy's heart skipped. She looked away. "I was," she said quietly. Emma nodded slowly. "Sorry. I didn't mean to bring up anything painful." Nosy sighed. "It's not your fault." He stood quietly for a few seconds, then cleared his throat. "Well, just know you seem like someone with a good heart. Strong, too. I admire that." Then he smiled, waved, and walked off. That night, Amaka noticed something. "Who's the man that always comes to buy food?" she asked, her eyes full of mischief. Nosy shook her head. "He's just a customer." "Are you sure?" Amaka smiled. "Because the way he looks at you." Nosy rolled her eyes. "Don't start." But Amaka wasn't wrong. Over the next few weeks, Emma didn't just come for rice. He brought gifts, plantain, onions, sometimes bottled water. He said it was to support the business. And slowly, Nosy started to talk more. She told him about her food journey, how she learned to cook from her mother, how she used to dream of opening a restaurant. One afternoon, Emma sat on a plastic chair beside her stall. "Nosy," he said. "Forgive me again if I'm overstepping, but I see something special in you." Nosy looked down, unsure of what to say. "I was married, too," Emma said. "Years ago, my wife died in a car crash. I haven't tried to love anyone since, until recently." Nosy's eyes widened. "You remind me what peace looks like," he continued, "not the loud, flashy kind, but the quiet one that sits in your chest and makes you feel at home. I don't want to rush you. I just wanted you to know." Nosy didn't reply for a long time. She looked at her hands, then at the pot of rice, then at him. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know," Emma said gently. "But I'm not chick. I won't break your heart." It took months, but eventually Nosy said yes to coffee, then to dinner, then to long walks on Sunday evenings. And one day, as they sat under a tree near the park, she looked at him and asked, "Why me? You could have chosen anyone." Emma smiled. "Because you're the most real person I've met. You carry pain, but you still smile. You were broken, but you didn't stay down. That's the kind of woman I want beside me." Nosy's eyes filled with tears. She reached for his hand and held it tightly. "Then I want to try, too," she said. They got married 6 months later, a small, quiet ceremony. No big cake, no loud music, just a few close friends and family. Amaka was the loudest one there, dancing like she'd just won the lottery. "I told you," she shouted. "I told you good things will still come." Their new life was peaceful. Emma was soft with her. He made her laugh. He listened to her stories. He helped her expand her food business into a proper shop. Every morning before work, he kissed her forehead and said, "I love you, my queen." For the first time in years, Nosy felt safe. And then, the unexpected happened. One morning, she woke up feeling strange. Her body was weak. She couldn't stand for too long. The smell of stew made her sick. She brushed it off, maybe it was malaria. But when it continued for 2 weeks, Emma said, "Let's go to the hospital." At the clinic, they ran tests. She waited on the bench, biting her nails. The nurse returned with a wide smile. "Congratulations, madam," she said. "You're pregnant." Nosy froze. "Pregnant?" "Yes," the nurse nodded. 3 weeks. Nosy covered her mouth, tears pouring from her eyes. Emma jumped to his feet. Pregnant? Are you serious? The nurse laughed. Very serious. He turned to Nosy, pulled her up, and hugged her tightly. You're going to be a mother, he whispered. We're going to be parents. Nosy couldn't stop crying. The joy was too much. She held his shirt and cried like a baby. The months that followed were full of excitement, but the biggest surprise came during her scan. As the doctor moved the probe over her belly, his eyes widened. Madam, there are 3 heartbeats. Nosy sat up. 3? Yes, the doctor said. You're carrying triplets. She screamed. The whole hospital probably heard her. When they got home, Emma knelt and cried. God, you've done too much. 3 children at once. This is more than I asked for. They prepared carefully. Emma built a nursery. Amaka came to help. The neighbors brought gifts. And on a calm Saturday morning, Nosy gave birth to 3 healthy boys. Tears flowed freely. The nurses clapped. The doctor smiled, and Emma couldn't stop laughing. They look like you, he said, holding one of the babies. But I'm keeping this one. His ears look like mine. Nosy held all 3 to her chest, crying silently. I'm not barren, she whispered. God proved them wrong. Word spread fast. People from her old street came to see the miracle. Even some of Chick's friends heard about it. She had triplets, they asked. That woman Chick threw out? Yes, someone would reply. She even opened a new restaurant. Her husband is rich and kind. Some people smiled with joy. Others shook their heads with regret. But Nosy wasn't thinking about the past anymore. She was holding her sons, kissing Emma, feeding her babies in the early hours of the morning, smiling at their tiny hands and soft cries. Her scars were still there, but now her life had changed. She was no longer the broken woman crying on the street. She was a mother. She was whole. She was free. While Nosy was learning how to hold a baby with one hand and feed 2 others with the other, far away in another part of town, Chick was sitting inside his office, spinning slowly in his leather chair, looking at his phone screen. His business had grown. The company cars were newer, his clothes more expensive, his bank account bigger. But there was one thing that still troubled his heart, something money couldn't buy. He was still without a child. After throwing Nosy out, he'd expected his life to move on quickly. He believed once he got a new woman, one who could give him children, everything would fall into place. But it didn't. He'd dated 3 different women in the last 3 years. None of them got pregnant. One even left him after a year, saying she couldn't live in a house where the man's mother treated her like a baby factory. His mother, Mama Ike, was now older but still sharp with her tongue. You're not serious, she always said. You're choosing fashion over family. When I picked Nosy for you, I told you to be patient. You were the one who ran her off. Chick would always grow angry. Don't mention that woman to me again. But late at night, when everyone had gone home and the house was quiet, his mind would wander. Where was she now? Did she remarry? Did she find joy? One morning, while scrolling through Instagram, he saw a picture that froze him. A baby's leg. Then another photo, tiny fingers holding a woman's thumb. He stared at the pictures, trying to be sure. The hand in the photo looked like Nosy's, the skin, the way she held the baby. It couldn't be. No, it's just coincidence, he told himself. But he kept thinking about it. So he decided to block it out with something stronger, another woman. That same week, his friend Cunnell called him. Guy, there's someone you need to meet, Cunnell said over the phone. Who? Chick asked lazily. Her name's Adora. She just moved back from Lagos. Fashion designer, rich family, very fine, very classy. And guess what? She wants a serious man. Not just all those Instagram boys. Chick laughed. You're selling her like she's a car. I'm serious, Connell said. She's different. You'll like her. Chick sighed. Fine. Set it up. They met at a fancy restaurant 2 nights later. Adora was exactly as described, tall, beautiful, with long curly hair and nails painted gold. She wore a gown that looked like it came straight from Paris. But what caught Chick's attention wasn't her looks. It was the way she spoke, confident, bold, like someone who knew what she wanted. So, you're the famous Chick, she said with a small smile, swirling her wine glass. And you're the Adora everyone keeps talking about, he replied. They spoke for 2 hours about business, travel, life. But the topic Chick brought up almost by force was family. I've been ready for children since forever, he said. I just haven't found the right woman. Adora raised her brow. You were married before, right? Yes, Chick said quickly. But she couldn't give me a child. We tried for years. Adora said nothing. She just nodded. Then she smiled again. I'm not in a hurry, but I do want children. Maybe 2 or 3. Chick's heart jumped. Same here. Within a month, they were seen together everywhere, at weddings, business launches, even church. People started whispering, Chick has finally moved on. He started spoiling her, buying her dresses, phones, even a car. One day, Adora said, let's not waste time. If we're serious, let's do it. Do what? Chick asked. Marriage, she said, sipping her juice like it was nothing. Chick stared at her. You're ready? I'm a grown woman, she said. I know what I want. I don't believe in dating for 10 years. If you want me, show me. That night, Chick called his event planner. The wedding preparations began immediately. Everything had to be perfect. It was going to be the biggest wedding in town, red carpet, Rolls-Royce, a live band from Ghana, guests flying in from Abuja and Dubai. Chick was obsessed with making the wedding grand, not just for love, but to prove something to his friends, his mother, the world. He wanted everyone to see that his life was better without Nosy. And deep down, a small voice whispered, he wanted Nosy to see it, too. One afternoon, as he sat with the wedding planner going through the guest list, Chick paused. Add one more name, he said. Who? The planner asked. He picked up a pen and wrote it himself. Nosy. The planner raised her brow. Your ex-wife? Chick didn't explain. He just smiled coldly. Send her the invite. First class. I want her to be there. Front seat. Meanwhile, Adora was planning her own side of things. She'd ordered her wedding gown from a designer in Milan. The lace cost more than some people's cars. Her bridesmaids were already rehearsing their dance steps. Her bridal shower was to be held at a beach resort. To the world, she was glowing. But behind closed doors, Adora was getting worried. She'd been trying to get pregnant for months. Nothing. Every morning, she checked her calendar. Every evening, she stared at test kits. All negative. She hadn't told Chick yet. She was afraid. And her mother's voice kept ringing in her head. Are you sure this man isn't the one with the problem? 2 weeks before the wedding, Adora finally brought it up. They were lying on the bed, going through some photos on her phone. She said quietly, Chick, do you ever think about seeing a doctor? Chick looked at her. Why? For a checkup, she said carefully. Just to be sure everything is fine before we marry. He frowned. What do you mean by that? I mean, she hesitated, we've been together for months. No pregnancy. Chick stood up slowly. So, you think I'm the problem? No, she said quickly. I'm just saying maybe we both check together. Chick's face turned cold. You sound just like Nosy, he said sharply, blaming me, making me feel like I'm broken. Adora sat up. I didn't say that. He grabbed his shirt. Let's not talk about this again. Ever. Adora said nothing, but inside, a new kind of fear was growing. Chick continued the wedding plans like nothing happened. He told his friends, "This wedding will shake the city. I want my ex to see what real success looks like." His friend Kunnel laughed. "So you're inviting her to disgrace her?" Chick smiled proudly. "She needs to see what she lost." But Kunnel looked unsure. "Are you sure that's wise?" "What if?" "There's no what if," Chick snapped. "She'll sit in that hall and see my new bride walking down the aisle in diamonds. Let her choke on regret." On the day of the wedding rehearsal, Chick stood in the hall alone before anyone else arrived. He looked around the decorated space, roses, chandeliers, golden chairs. But his heart wasn't peaceful. He took out his phone and stared at Nosi's name on the guest list again. He thought about how she used to smile when she arranged his ties, how she made him pepper soup when he was sick, how she cried that night he threw her out. He shook his head quickly. "No," he whispered. "She was the problem. She couldn't give me a child. I made the right choice." Still, he couldn't breathe properly. He walked out and lit a cigarette. Far away, Nosi was bathing one of the triplets when her phone buzzed. Amaka picked it up and froze. "Nosi, what is it?" Nosi asked, drying the baby's hair. "It's a wedding invitation." "From who?" Amaka turned the phone. "Chick." Nosi stared at the screen, heart pounding. She reached for the phone, read the invite, then slowly placed it on the table. Amaka was fuming. What kind of insult is this? Is he mad? But Nosi just stood quietly, holding her baby close. Then she smiled, a calm, steady smile. "It's okay," she said softly. "Let him have his wedding." Amaka frowned. "You're not going, right?" Nosi looked at her babies, all three sleeping peacefully. She didn't answer, but the way she walked to her room with quiet confidence said everything. Nosi stood by the window, one hand gently rocking the baby in her arms, the other holding the wedding invitation. The gold envelope was thick and shiny, like something meant for a king. The letters were bold and loud. Chick and Adora, the Royal Union. She'd read the card 5 times already. Each time, it said the same thing, the date, the venue, the dress code, and then her name printed clearly on the guest list. Nosi, first row seat. She lowered her eyes and took a deep breath. She wasn't crying. She wasn't shaking, but something inside her was rising slowly, like fire warming cold stones. Amaka walked in, carrying a bowl of hot pap. "I still don't understand why he sent this. Is he crazy or just wicked?" Nosi said nothing. Amaka placed the bowl down. "Is he trying to insult you after everything he did?" Still no answer. Amaka snapped. "Nosi, talk to me now. Why are you so calm? You should have torn that invitation into pieces and thrown it in the dustbin." Nosi finally spoke. "He wants me to feel small." Amaka folded her arms. "Then let's ignore him. We won't give him that chance." Nosi turned slowly. "He wants me to come and cry in a corner while his bride walks in with gold on her skin and a smile on her lips." "And we won't go," Amaka said again. Nosi looked at her 3 sons, sleeping quietly on the rug, their matching yellow onesies wrinkled from playtime. "But what if we show him the truth?" Amaka's brow rose. "What truth?" Nosi's voice was firm. "That I was never the problem. That the woman he thought was broken is whole." Amaka was silent for a long time. Then she sat down. "Wait, are you planning to go to the wedding?" Nosi nodded. "With the boys?" Another nod. Amaka opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Then she laughed. That man will faint." "Nosi, are you serious?" Nosi smiled for the first time that day. "Very serious." The plan began that evening. Nosi went to the wardrobe and picked out a long yellow gown she'd kept for a special day. It had been sewn months ago by Amaka, but she'd never worn it. Amaka brought out her makeup kit. If we're doing this, we'll do it well. I don't want to look loud, Nosy said. I want to look peaceful, but powerful. Say less, Amaka grinned. You'll look like God's proof. They ordered new outfits for the boys, matching yellow shorts and white shirts with bow ties. Amaka borrowed a friend's contact and booked a black Rolls-Royce Phantom. The car would arrive that morning and wait down the road until Nosy gave the signal. They practiced how the boys would hold her hands and walk beside her. The twins were a little playful, but the youngest always followed her steps. I'm not going there to fight, Nosy reminded Amaka as they folded clothes. I know, Amaka said. But trust me, your presence alone will scatter that wedding. On the night before the wedding, Nosy couldn't sleep. She sat by the window again, watching the stars. Emma came and stood behind her. He placed his hands on her shoulders. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, he said softly. I want to, she replied, not to prove anything to him, but to remind myself that I survived, and I'm still standing. He kissed her cheek. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. Nosy turned to him. Thank you. You've given me what no man could ever give me. Peace. Emma smiled. And you gave me back joy. The morning of the wedding arrived. The whole city buzzed with noise. Social media was full of pictures. #ChickAnadora was trending. Everyone talked about how the wedding was the event of the year. The venue was a giant hall near the waterfront. Long red carpets covered the entrance. Cameras flashed everywhere. Guests walked in with glittering clothes and sunglasses. Big politicians and business moguls sat at the front. Inside, Adora stood before the mirror in her hotel room, her white gown sparkling like ice. Her best friend, Uju, adjusted her veil. You look stunning. Chick will fall in love all over again. Adora smiled weakly. I hope so. But in her heart, she still carried fear, no pregnancy, no answers, and a man who refused to get tested. Chick stood at the altar, looking around the decorated hall. He wore a white agbada with gold embroidery, his shoes polished like glass. He kept checking his watch. Kunal came to stand beside him. Why are you restless? I'm waiting for someone, Chick said. Who? He didn't answer. Then, suddenly, his eyes caught movement near the entrance. A black Rolls-Royce pulled up. The back door opened slowly. Out stepped Nosy. She wore the yellow gown like a queen, her face calm, her steps sure. And beside her walked 3 small boys, dressed like angels. The hall went silent. People gasped. Phones came out. Who is that? Wait, is that his ex-wife? She has triplets. The whisper spread like wildfire. Chick couldn't breathe. He grabbed Kunal's hand. Tell me I'm dreaming. Kunal blinked. Bro, she has children. Chick stepped down from the altar, walking forward like someone in a trance. Nosy walked slowly, gracefully, holding her son's hands. Her eyes met his, but they didn't shake. She smiled, a soft, simple smile. The crowd parted as she walked to her seat, the front row, the seat Chick had reserved for her. She sat down quietly. Her boys climbed onto her lap and whispered, Mommy, we made it. She nodded and kissed their heads. Adora entered the hall shortly after, her veil over her face. She noticed the silence. She noticed the faces. She noticed Chick standing stiff at the front, his eyes frozen. She reached the altar and whispered, What's going on? Chick couldn't speak. The pastor cleared his throat. Shall we begin? But Chick wasn't listening. His eyes were still on Nosy, on the children, on the truth. Back in her seat, Amaka whispered, Do you want to leave now? Nosy shook her head. No, we'll stay till the end. Her voice was calm. Her heart was calm. She wasn't here to destroy anything. She was here to be seen, to be heard. Without a word, the wedding hall had gone from loud to quiet in just a few minutes. All the music, all the camera flashes, all the laughter had paused. The guests didn't know whether to sit still or turn around. Some held their phones midair, mouths slightly open, while others simply stared at the woman who'd just walked in like the wind had changed direction. Nosy sat at the front, exactly where Chick had planned for her to sit, but not the way he'd imagined. She wasn't weeping in shame. She wasn't looking bitter or defeated. She sat with calm pride, dressed in yellow, glowing like sunrise. On each side of her sat her sons, triplets, boys with smooth brown skin and wide, curious eyes. Their shirts were white, tucked neatly into yellow shorts. One of them had a toy car in his hand. The other two were whispering to each other, smiling. The crowd still couldn't believe it. "That's Nosy," a woman in green lace whispered behind her fan. "She has children?" the man beside her asked. "They look like her, and they look like, shoo," someone else said. "Let's see how it ends." At the front, the pastor coughed again. "Shall we begin the ceremony?" Chick was standing beside Adora, but he wasn't listening. His mind was far. Adora leaned closer, her voice soft but sharp. "Who is that woman with those boys?" Chick blinked. That's Nosy." Adora's brows furrowed. "Your ex-wife?" He nodded slowly. "Those children with her?" Chick didn't answer. Adora turned her face to him completely. "Chick, are those her children?" The crowd was now completely focused on the couple at the altar. Even the photographers didn't know where to point their cameras anymore. Chick shifted on his feet. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Adora's eyes widened. "You told me she was barren." I thought she was," Chick stammered. Adora's voice rose slightly. "You thought? You told me she couldn't give you a child. You said that's why you left her." "I believed it," he said quietly. "That's what doctors," she snapped. "You never showed me any results. You never agreed to go for tests yourself." Chick rubbed his head, sweating under the lights. "Adora, please, can we talk after this?" "No," she said firmly. "We'll talk now because the entire hall is watching." She turned to the crowd. "Is this your idea of a joke, Chick? You invited your ex-wife here just to disgrace her, and now she walks in with triplets." There was a loud murmur from the guests. Chick looked around nervously. "Lower your voice." But Adora stepped away from him. Her face was filled with confusion and hurt. "You lied to me," she said louder now. "You lied to me just like you lied to her." Cunnel came up quickly. "Adora, please, let's go outside for a minute." "No," she said. "I want answers right here." She looked straight at Nosy. "Mama, please," she called out. "Forgive me for asking this, but are those boys your children?" Nosy stood up slowly. She picked up the smallest boy and carried him in her arms. "Yes," she said clearly. "They are my sons." The hall went silent again. She looked at Chick. Her eyes were calm but strong. "You called me barren, Chick. You threw me out and watched me cry on the floor. You said I was cursed. You made me believe I was less than a woman." People gasped quietly. "But I wasn't the problem," Nosy continued. "You never agreed to be tested. You said it was always me, but God showed the truth. And he gave me not one child, but 3. Chick couldn't speak. His tongue felt heavy. Adora turned to him slowly. "So you lied. You ruined her. You dragged her name. And all this time, it was you." Chick tried to defend himself. "I didn't know. I didn't mean, you didn't care," Adora cut in. "You just wanted someone to blame." She stepped away from the altar. "I can't marry you, Chick," she said, her voice shaking. "Not today. Not ever." The crowd gasped. The pastor stepped back. The choir sat down. The camera lights dimmed. Chick tried to reach for her hand. "Adora, please, don't do this here." She looked at him one last time. You're not ready for love. You're still stuck in your pride. I deserve better. She dropped her bouquet on the stage and walked out of the hall, her bridesmaids rushing after her. Chick turned, eyes wide, breathing hard. The room spun. Guests began to whisper louder now. That man is barren. So it was his fault all along, and he wanted to disgrace her. Imagine. Chick looked at the ground. His knees felt weak. Nosy turned and began walking out of the hall, too. Her boys followed beside her. She didn't look back. She didn't shout. She didn't gloat. She walked like a queen leaving a courtroom, with dignity and truth wrapped around her like a royal robe. Amaka met her at the door. Nosy, you did it. You showed them the truth. Nosy shook her head. I didn't do it to prove anything. I just came to be seen. They stepped into the Rolls-Royce. The driver closed the door gently, and the car pulled away. Inside the car, Nosy held her boys close. Are you okay, Mommy? One of them asked. She smiled. Yes, I'm more than okay. Back at the venue, Chick sat alone on the edge of the stage. His agbada looked too big now. His crown felt too heavy. The drinks were still cold, the food untouched, but the joy had left the room. Kunal walked up quietly. Bro, what now? Chick didn't answer. He just sat there, staring at the door Nosy walked through, the door his bride ran through, the door his lies had opened. And for the first time in his life, he felt truly alone. Chick sat alone on the edge of the wedding stage, staring at nothing. His white agbada, once shining and smooth, now had folds from where he'd slouched. The golden embroidery looked dull. The hall, once filled with noise and laughter, had turned cold and empty. Even the waiters were packing trays in silence. He couldn't feel his fingers. His ears were ringing. His head was heavy. What had just happened? How did everything fall apart in one day? Kunal, his best man, came and sat beside him. He'd removed his cap and looked more tired than confused. Chick, he said carefully. Chick didn't answer. Kunal continued. You didn't see that coming, did you? Still no answer. Kunal sighed. She came with triplets, bro triplets. And the whole world was there to see it. Chick turned his head slowly. I planned that wedding for months. I know, Kunal said. I invited her to sit there and watch me move on. Kunal didn't say anything. She came, not crying, not broken, but with 3 sons. Chick rubbed his eyes hard. How is that possible? Kunal leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. That's what everyone's asking now. You said she was barren. You divorced her because of that. And now she has children, not 1, 3. Chick's chest tightened. But she never got pregnant while we were together. Did you ever get tested? Kunal asked quietly. Chick didn't reply. I'm serious, Kunal said. Did you? I didn't need to. She was the one who needed to. She was the one without a child. Kunal turned sharply. Says who? You? Your mother? Gossip? You just assumed. Chick's voice cracked. She never argued. Because she loved you, Kunal said. She was loyal. She believed in you. She didn't want to fight. Chick swallowed hard. She begged me not to leave. She cried and said we could still try. I called her cursed. I told her to get out. Kunal was silent for a moment. Then he said, now the truth is staring at you, and the whole world is watching. Outside, cameras were flashing. Social media was exploding. Videos from the wedding were already online. People were sharing pictures of Nosy stepping out of the black Rolls-Royce. Clips of Adora dropping her bouquet and walking out were everywhere. Hashtag Nosy returns. Hashtag triplets at the wedding. Hashtag chick exposed. Some comments were mocking. Some were shocked. Others were angry. But one thing was clear, Chick was trending for the wrong reason. Later that evening, back at Nosi's house, Amaka sat on the couch with her phone, reading out loud. "Listen to this one," she said. "This woman is a true queen. She didn't shout. She didn't fight. She just showed up with God's answer." Nosi smiled gently while feeding the boys. "I didn't do it for the world to clap. I just wanted him to see." Amaka looked up. "Well, now he's seen, and not just him, everybody." Nosi lifted one of the babies onto her lap. "Do you think he feels anything?" "Oh, he feels it," Amaka said. "Pride doesn't protect anyone from disgrace." There was a knock on the door. Nosi turned. "Who could that be?" Amaka stood up. "Let me check." She opened the door slowly, and her eyes widened. "Oh. Chick." Nosi froze. She stood up slowly, placing the baby in the walker. Chick walked in, looking nothing like the man from the wedding. His shirt was untucked, his eyes red, his lips dry. He held his cap in his hands like a schoolboy coming to beg his headmistress. "Nosi," he said softly. She didn't speak. He looked around the room and saw the children playing. One of them looked up and smiled at him. "Hi, Uncle." Chick's heart twisted. "I didn't come to cause trouble," he said. "I just needed to see you to say something." Nosi folded her arms, her face calm. "I ruined everything," Chick said, eyes lowering. "I judged you wrongly. I insulted you. I let my pride blind me." Silence. He took one step closer. "I believed I was right. I told the world you were barren. I didn't even test myself. I just assumed." Nosi finally spoke. "And that assumption destroyed our marriage." Chick nodded. "I know. I see it now. I was foolish. I let ego control me. I didn't protect you. I shamed you." Her voice was steady. "You didn't just shame me. You crushed me. You made me feel worthless." "I'm sorry," he said, tears falling. "I'm sorry from my heart. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I had to come." He knelt down. "Please, even if you don't forgive me, I want to say it. I was wrong. I hurt the only woman who ever truly loved me." Nosi looked at him quietly. "I saw the way you walked into that wedding," he continued, "with peace, with strength. You didn't shout. You didn't throw words. You just let the truth speak." He looked at the boys. "They're beautiful. You're a great mother." He bowed his head. "I'm sorry." The room stayed silent for a few seconds. Nosi stepped forward. "Stand up," she said gently. He looked up slowly. "You're not angry?" She shook her head. "I was angry for years, but now I'm free." Chick stood up slowly. "Thank you for listening. You should get tested," she added. "Not for me, but for your future." He nodded quickly. "I already did this morning." Nosi raised her brow. Chick looked ashamed. "The doctor confirmed it. I'm the one with the issue. Low sperm count. Possibly from an untreated infection I had years ago." Nosi blinked. "So all those years, yes," he said. "It was me." There was a long pause. Then Nosi spoke, her voice soft but firm. "I don't hate you. I've moved on. God gave me a second chance." Chick nodded again. "I know, and you deserve everything good. I'm glad you're happy." He turned to leave. "Chick," she called. He turned back. "I forgive you." His shoulders dropped with relief. "Thank you." As he walked out of the house, Amaka came to stand beside Nosi. "You're stronger than I'll ever be," she whispered. Nosi gave a small smile. "I'm not strong. I just healed." The next morning, Chick woke up to another storm. His company had taken a hit. Some investors had pulled out. He had hundreds of messages waiting, some from family, others from bloggers. But the one that shook him was a message from Adora. Don't try to call me. I've gone back to Lagos. Find peace within yourself. I hope you learn. He sat back, holding his head. Everything was gone. But strangely, he felt lighter. Maybe this was what it meant to be truly humbled. Meanwhile, at Nosi's home, peace flowed like water. Emma returned from his trip and hugged her tightly. I saw the clips online, he said. You walked in like a lioness. Nosi laughed. It wasn't easy. I'm proud of you, Emma said. But more than that, I'm happy you stood up for yourself. She looked at her boys, now asleep on the floor. They don't even understand what happened, she said. But one day they will, and I'll tell them the story. The full story. Emma smiled. And I'll be right beside you. They stood there, holding hands, no bitterness, no anger, just peace. 1 month had passed since the wedding that never happened. The video clips were still going viral. The headlines refused to die down. Everyone had moved on, but Chick had not. He was no longer the man people admired. He no longer walked into boardrooms like a king. He didn't smile in his suits or joke with his workers. His office was quieter now. Some staff had resigned. Some partners pulled out. And the few people who still showed up treated him differently. They avoided his eyes. They whispered when he passed. But worst of all, he had lost himself. He couldn't sleep, couldn't eat well. He replayed everything in his head 1,000 times, Nosi's entrance, the triplets, Adora walking out. And now, the bitter truth, he was the one who had fertility issues all along. He had destroyed his own life with pride. He sat at his desk, staring at the test result from the fertility clinic. Low sperm count, low motility. Patient advised to begin treatment immediately. The words felt like a hammer. So many years, so many lies, so many people he blamed, so many tears he caused. His phone buzzed, another blog post. Former business tycoon faces downfall after ex-wife's dramatic wedding appearance. He sighed and dropped the phone. Just then, his mother walked into the office. She looked older, weaker. She had heard everything, too. Chick, she said, sitting across from him. I came to talk. He nodded slowly. I know what you'll say, Mama. She sighed. You were wrong. We were both wrong. He looked up. She continued, I pushed you to marry someone else. I told you Nosi was the problem. But I never once stopped to ask if we were being fair. Mama, you helped me chase her out, Chick whispered. I know, she said, her voice cracking, and I'll never forgive myself for that. Silence fell between them. She wiped her eyes. Have you spoken to her again? I went to see her. She forgave me. She always had a big heart, Mama Ike whispered. Even after everything. He nodded slowly. But she's not coming back. She's happy now. She has a real family. Mama Ike lowered her head. God gave her beauty for ashes. And we destroyed something pure. Chick didn't speak. He just looked down at his palms, empty now. His crown was gone. Meanwhile, in another part of town, Nosi was in the kitchen, preparing okra soup. The boys were watching cartoons in the living room while Emma repaired the kitchen tap. Babe, Emma called out, holding the wrench. Remind me again, do we have enough crayfish? Nosi smiled. Yes, it's in the blue container, second shelf. He laughed. You've organized this kitchen like a chemist's lab. They both chuckled. There was peace in that home. It wasn't built with gold, but it was rich in joy. As they sat to eat later that night, one of the triplets suddenly said, Mommy, when we grow up, will we also be famous like you? Nosi laughed. Who said I'm famous? Everyone was shouting your name on the internet, the second boy added, licking soup from his fingers. Nausi looked at Emma and smiled. You'll grow up knowing your story, she said. But more than that, you'll grow up knowing your worth. Emma nodded in agreement. And knowing how strong your mother is. A few days later, Nausi got a letter delivered to her new restaurant. She opened it slowly. It was short, typed, and signed at the bottom by Chick. Thank you for your strength. Thank you for your forgiveness. You taught me a lesson I'll never forget. I lost a good woman, and I hope one day your sons will know how proud they should be. I wish you peace. Chick. She folded the letter and placed it in her drawer. She wasn't angry. She wasn't sad. She was simply at peace. Back in Chick's compound, his neighbors now looked at him differently. Some pitied him. Some laughed behind his back. The gardener didn't greet him with the same cheer. The security man no longer rushed to open the gate with excitement. He had truly become the disgraced groom. One evening, he stood in front of his mirror and stared at himself. Who are you now? He whispered. What did your pride gain you? No answer. He looked out the window, far away, and finally said out loud, I destroyed the woman who loved me. And now I'm alone. But far away, the woman he once broke was whole again. She had found joy. She had found love. She had found purpose. And she had 3 little reminders that what others called barrenness, God had turned into overflow.